Lights, camera, action. Okay, I'm calling to order the Brattleboro Planning Commission meeting of December 1st, right at 6 p.m.-ish. And let's just deal with last meeting, meaning the minutes of November 3rd. Could I hear a motion for that?
I'll make a motion, this is Lindsay, to accept the minutes of November 3rd.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. I'll second. Any comments or edits? Any issues with the minutes? No? Seeing none, hearing none. All those in favor, please raise your hand, keep it up. That's everyone except for Bonnie. But it looks like Bonnie's about to say something. Yep, that's a
I'm
hand
here.
up. Okay,
Excellent.
it's all 6 of us
Hey,
in favor. Great.
no.
Yep.
Hands up.
Okay, thank you, Bonnie. Okay, moving on to announcements. Lindsay, how did your November 10th community building event go?
It was great. Yeah, we had a really good turnout and really excellent food, including some food that was contributed by Vegan AF and Super Fresh very generously. So yeah, it was really great.
Okay, excellent. Sue and Gemma and I had a couple emails and about the downtown bike parking, because last meeting when we approved, what I thought was the most important part of the recommendations, I realized that I didn't really cover or prod the rest of the commission to weigh in on the storage parking, the long-term bike parking recommendations, as well as the doing some outreach towards private property owners as far as the recommendations in this document. So I think Gemma gave me an enthusiastic yes by email that Gemma and I are going to work along with staff to do a little outreach to those private property owners in line with what's in the recommendations. So maybe when we draft something, have things, it's going to be a different letter for every single situation, I think, because not entirely, but based on the property and the way their current racks are or what we feel like they need for improvement. But we could bring that back before commissioners for a look-see before we send it out. Feel free to get in touch with any thoughts on that if need be. The other thing, maybe Sue wants to introduce us, was in the email, the body of the email, along with the meeting's materials from Building a Positive Community and Cassandra Holloway. Would you say something about that, Sue?
Yeah, sure. So I sent to you all a couple of links that came from Cassandra Holloway at Building a Positive Community. She runs a youth council, which actually Tom, myself, and Gary attended. I think that was all of us. Attended a meeting the same night, November 10th, that Lindsay's event was, where the youth were having conversations about community safety. These resources that Cassandra shared are about building healthy communities and ways that we could put that into the town plan. I know she and maybe a member or two of the youth council would like to come in January to speak briefly to it. They usually have their youth council meeting at 7, so it would be something at the beginning of the meeting. But if you could take a look at those and figure out if that's a direction that you want our town plan to go. I actually didn't look at these links. I remember when they came out. So yeah, just take a look at it and maybe you'll have some questions for Cassandra when she comes in January.
Sue, are you looking for some, do you think it'd be helpful for some, this is just under announcements, so we shouldn't necessarily delve into topics or discuss very much, but are you looking for some direction from us between now, or do you imagine it'll be a kickoff discussion in January?
I think we'll discuss it in January. I don't think I need any
direction.
in advance of that.
Okay. I'll just say, well, it's a question. Are they going to be focusing on what it seemed like a lot of the content in the email was, which was about drug misuse issues, or are they actually going to be talking about like the state? Well, I don't know if it's the states, but some other that it's like a collaboration of the state with a couple northern regional planning commissions, the Health Equity Planning Toolkit, where there was even some like, I mean, because I last year I remembered about this. I was asking some public health people in town, like, hey, is there some nexus? Like, do you have already pre-prepared some nexes of public health with planning? And then someone, Shyla Foss, connected me with, or just sent me the Health Equity Planning Toolkit and some draft language. And so now I'm seeing those links again in this email. And I'm like, oh yeah, I thought I wrote a note to myself to bring this up when we started the town plan process, and then I totally forgot. So
yeah, I don't know what she'll speak to.
Okay.
Maybe just to the youth council's kind of concerns, and then also the way these tools can help do it, and probably to advocate for it to be in the town plan.
Mhm.
I haven't. It's been years since I've looked at these links. I remember when they were out. I mean, we've dealt with kind of the health equity based on having compact and walkable communities.
Right.
I know in the past there were efforts from people associated with the health department to get, things like sugar and healthy snacks and that kind of stuff, and that was an area that staff wasn't comfortable going into. I have not looked at it again in terms of substance misuse, so
Okay.
I'll have to do that before January.
Okay, great. Any questions or comments on that or other announcements? Commissioners? No? Okay. All right, let's move on to the public proposal. We've received another public proposal using our, making use of our form on our webpage. And this is from Peter Paggi, representing Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust. There's the form there in our supporting documents for the meeting, and a 2-page memo from staff. Sue, should I kick it over to you or to Peter?
Okay, if you wanna let Peter speak to what he's asking for.
Right. Yeah.
Don't mind?
Okay, I think that'd be great. Welcome, Peter, and thank you for coming to us with this idea. And you filled out the form. I think we've all read it, but would you like to speak to it however you would like? Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Peter Paggi, representing Wyndham and Windsor Housing Trust. We are owners of Abbott Block at 10 to 18 Canal Street, which currently has 17 residential apartments and 1 commercial space. The commercial space was recently vacated, and when it became vacant, working with our property manager, they really wanted to convert it to residential units. It's not a great commercial location. It's kind of out of the downtown core. There's in the past 15 years, there's been about 5 businesses there, none of which have been particularly successful. So they thought, our property manager thought it'd be just much better utilized as residential space. So we approached Brian about that, and he was pretty excited, but it is in the urban center zoning district where residential uses are not allowed on the first floor within some amount of feet from the street. So our request is pretty simple. Just we would love to put 2 residential apartments down there, and either working with the commission to either loosen that restriction in this area of Canal Street, or change the zoning district if that would make more sense. I don't think we have a particular strong desire about how it happens. Just that it would be great to get 2 residential units in that spot.
Okay. Sue, should we kick it over to you since that's the process anyway?
Yeah.
With the proposing a procedure.
So I took a look at this proposal and kind of the situating of the building. Brian was not able to issue a permit for it because it is that our regulations basically have 2 kind of stipulations. One, that it's in an area between Main or Elliott, in between Main or Elliott Street on the sidewalk, and within 30 feet of the sidewalk you can't have first floor residential, or it's in a storefront building for a depth of 30 feet from the sidewalk. So this meets the definition of a storefront building, so Brian wasn't unable to issue a permit. In addition, this is kind of a corner lot, so there's no way that you could do 30 feet back. In fact, there's probably some housing, possibly some housing on the first floor, more than 30 feet back along Canal Street, but I'm not sure about that. Anyway, we've had a couple of people come before the Planning Commission with concerns about the way this provision is working, because there has been some housing allowed on the Harmony lot, because it's outside of that 30 feet from Main Street sidewalk. And so I support, staff supports taking a look at this. I'm not sure if the best way would be to, I think we do need to work on that provision, because I don't think the intent was to allow first floor apartments on Harmony lot, and clearly there's kind of a gap there. So maybe it's just by working on that section of the regulations. This building is somewhat isolated, basically because of it's near the two pretty congested intersections. You've got to cross the streets. As Peter mentioned, there's been a couple of unsuccessful commercial operations in there. I think my interest would be kind of preserving that storefront look, but the use of it, if that could be handled with a residential, use in there, and I think that would be okay. So, staff is supportive of taking a look at this. I have had some conversations with Peter that this would be a zoning change, and that takes some time, and we're writing a town plan, so this would not be an immediate thing, but perhaps it could be teed up in the town plan, and then we could work on it after that. Or be working on it simultaneously, so after the town plan's adopted, we can move into some regulation change. Okay.
Thank you, Sue. Commissioners, let's hear whatever you want to say, but questions, positions, directions. Go ahead,
I was
Gary.
wondering, has there been anybody approach you, Sue, anyone about businesses going in there at all? Anyone thinking or have any vested interest of opening up a small storefront at this particular time and climate?
No, we've had nobody approach about that.
Ah, okay, because I was just wondering, because there's other little offset street little places that were your businesses themselves, and they've converted that into studios. So I was just wondering.
Gemma?
As somebody who used to live right across the street from that building, I do not see that building as necessarily being out of the way for a commercial location. In fact, I think it's an ideal commercial location for a lot of people that live in the area. The question is what kind of business? Because in the past 10 years that I've lived in this town, every time I've walked past that building or ridden my bike past that building, I've always sort of wondered what the heck is even in there in the first place. I didn't even know that there was a business in there. I thought it was just boarded up and unused space that could have been used. I think maybe the problem here is not, its location, but what kind of businesses have been leased to for that space. I mean, a small convenience store or a small bar even, would be ideal kinds of businesses for a building like that, I would think. So I'm very skeptical about the idea of housing going into what is clearly a storefront retail intention. However, I would like to know more about what exactly is the floor plan and the space that we're talking about, because I've never been inside the building. And I would like to know more about what the exact plans are for conversion into residential units. Putting 2 residential units in a space like this could potentially be problematic, because if there was any desire or need in the future to return it to retail space, you then have 2 tenants that have to be evicted in order for that to be returned to, to storefront or retail operation. So I think we need a whole lot more information about this before we can have any kind of firm opinion on it.
I believe it was a thrift store with Kid Barrett, right, Tom?
I wouldn't call it a thrift store. I mean, it was kind of his a museum. I don't know how well advertised or the open hours, but he was often there, and yeah, it was. I'm not going to say it was his personal collection. I mean, it was his personal collection of ephemera, and he welcomed people in to learn about it. But yeah, it was not retail or a store. Lindsay.
Well, so as usual, my concern is going to be about spot zoning. So I see this as a bigger issue. I mean, we don't even need to talk about what would be happening in that specific building yet, because it seems to me like we would be looking at the entire district and what our rules are for first floor housing. And so out of that, my second question was, I'm not involved at all, and I've never totally wrapped my head around what the DRB does and the different types of permits that we have. So I guess I'm wondering where that first floor use falls right now in the permitting process, and if maybe that's an avenue to making adjustments that would not change the boundary of the zoning district, but change the way we review things in the zoning district for that particular type of use.
So, to your points, yes, I agree with your first point. It's not about this specific building. I'm trying to approach it from looking at the entire section, because we have had other concerns raised about this section in the ordinance. And because of that, Gemma, wouldn't be appropriate to ask, particularly about the plans for conversion of this building, just because that's so site specific. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. We'd be looking at it district-wide. And then in terms of the DRB, so the building is permitted with the commercial unit on the first floor, and then other residential, elsewhere in the building. Previous commercial uses have been restaurants, I think a small retail, candy shop, cafe type things have been in there, I think, since maybe 2005, somewhere along that time. And so I don't believe the zoning administrator felt that there was a pathway under the existing permits.
It's a really tough situation, I feel like, because I was looking at the zoning map and I was hoping that maybe this single parcel being out sort of a little bit on its own, it's on the other side of the street, it's not surrounded by any parcels that are in the same district, would be unusual. But then looking at the district, that's not unusual. It looks like there's a street in the district where one half of the street is in the downtown area and the other side of the street isn't. And then there are other places where there are also single parcels that otherwise appear sort of separate from the district, but aren't. So I don't know. It seems complicated to me. I'm loath to say that because I walk by the building frequently and other buildings in the district that I think probably would benefit from having housing in them, but it seems complicated.
I'd like to take my turn. I'll just add quickly that it's also in the historic district, so there's those considerate. As far as Lindsay's question about review, it's that's another step of review that would happen maybe. But yeah, my thoughts are that Sue gave a good short summary of the history, and I was on the commission then. I was reluctant when, and I think I pushed back a bit in 2023 when we, up until that point, had no first floor housing allowed within 30 feet of any sidewalk in the urban center district. But that was maybe the peak of worry, not that the worry's gone away, of the housing crisis, and it really seemed like we need to do things, and we still do. But I thought that we took away the first floor commercial protections too much, in my opinion. So then when I've heard about like housing going in Harmony Lot, I felt like, oh yeah, that's a minor tragedy. Let's say that's unfortunate. But then, since then, I've learned, because of our interview with the commercial property owners and talking to Steve and Sue a bit, and going on ChatGPT and doing my little basic learning of commercial rental rates versus residential, I'd been going into this thinking, oh, commercial always rents higher than than residential. So I figured, like, well, we're putting a restriction on property owners, but it's not really hurting them much, because we're saying they can only rent to commercial that gets more per square foot. But since then, I've learned that in Brattleboro, based off the limited data that there is currently, and apparently it's common in other small and mid-sized towns and cities, but that residential rents for a higher price per square foot than commercial. It's just like in the big cities and top tier, urban centers, where commercial gets more than residential. So what I said earlier in this comment, combined with this, makes me feel like I'm totally gung-ho to look at the whole urban center and shift things around and revise things around. And at this point in time, what I would like is more first floor commercial protection in the really walkable, dense core areas like Harmony Lot, like some of Flat Street, but then some peripheral areas, because of the housing crisis, because property owners make more per square foot from residential in this town. I'm open to changing some of that up in the periphery, like for maybe this example. So that's my comment. Let's go with Dan and then Gemma.
Sure, thanks, Tom. I just wanted to add one comment. I don't think we need to debate right now, and we should let
Okay. That's a good point.
Sue and the staff do what they need to do. But I wanted to add one comment, which is that, and I've said this before, this is essentially part of a trend, and I think Wyndham & Windsor is doing the right thing by asking this question. Okay, which, if you look at South Main Street, there used to be bars on the first floors of many of those houses, or not many. There was one I can think of in the last 25 years. And, for example, and in many neighborhoods, we would have a small convenience store or a thrift store type of situation like we had here. The trend is that those commercial spaces, I'm just saying, they have turned into housing. That's my only comment.
Okay. So are you in support of looking into this, into the staff, in the regulations that staff presented, and bringing this up at future meetings for revising or considering revising things, Dan? Sounds like you are, based off that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, let's just. I think this is worthy of a good discussion for sure, and I really appreciate Wyndham & Windsor, bringing this one up.
Gary, then sorry, I said Gemma, and then Gary.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on what I was saying before. I have a number of reasons to be skeptical of conversion of retail space into residential. However, I also have to say that I would be far more comfortable with granting individual variances rather than going for a district-wide rezoning plan that would just simply allow housing on all first floor. I mean, I think that the retail spaces need to be protected, and I'm not insensitive to the current business climate, that it's difficult to attract businesses to a town like this. However, I think that individual variances are a much better idea, looking at the actual plans and the actual situations of particular buildings and saying, yes, this is an instance where we feel comfortable allowing housing, with possibly, the caveat that, it needs to be done in such a way that it can be returned to retail at some point in the future. So that's all I really have to say.
Thanks. I just want to respond to that real quickly. So, unlike many other states, Vermont doesn't allow use variances. We only do variances based on kind of the the dimensional standards. So that's
I did not know that.
Like New Hampshire has use variances, and lots of other states do.
Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, and I agree with Dan, because back in the days when I came up, a lot of the houses that are up on South Bay were either a bar or some little offset little storefront or something, but now you're dealing with housing. I didn't see housing have bars or little storefronts in their buildings. So how does that work? I can't remember your name, Paget
So,
from Wyndham Windsor. Maybe he can expound on that. Is that something that's permissible with housing? Adding businesses into a state-run federal building or whatever?
After, yeah.
Can I just
Go ahead. Yep.
Either one doesn't matter. I just want to get this, the sets because I like to do a site survey myself too, because I'm just spitballing, throwing spaghetti up against the wall, so I can't really make a determination.
Before Peter responds, if he wants to respond, I just want to say that our zoning does allow for small neighborhood commercial uses. That's something we did in 2023, I think, as well, so that if somebody wanted to do a cafe or gallery or a bar, even, I think they were all things that could be considered. So.
Oh, okay. Because I was thinking even as a storage place for people to store their things, because people are looking for storage in their apartments to add things. So
storage is a different thing, but
it's people doing that now, converting a lot of their properties in that. But I just never seen businesses in housing or anything like that up here. That's why I was concerned. I was trying to wrap my head around this and then looking at that because, like I said, the state has their requirements, town has their requirements. So just trying to get an understanding before I say, "Oh yeah, thumbs up, definitely go for it."
Well, it seems like we're going to see this again. It seems like most commissioners, have been from what I've heard, have been in favor, or all of them. But you haven't heard from a couple commissioners. But I think the majority have been in favor of having staff work on this, prepare a bit more, and or a lot more, and we'll have some discussion. I just want to, while I'm talking, I just want to quickly ask Peter if, and maybe Sue too, did the snow block is owned by and developed by Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust. Was that permit granted when commercial had to be on the first floor within 30 feet of the sidewalk?
Yes.
That was before 2023, okay.
Yeah, so we have a small commercial space there as well as non-residential building space. There's our community room there for the residents, and then a small commercial space to meet that requirement.
And then also the I can't remember the name of the block, but the one with River Gallery Art School is Windsor Housing Trust.
Okay.
Correct?
Yeah, Wilder.
Wilder, thank you.
Well,
And then the co-op as well. We own the upper stories of that as well. But that's obviously commercial on the first floor.
I bring that up, at least the one that's on Flat Street, because I wonder if that's something Wyndham Windsor also wants to convert to residential.
Not at this time.
Right.
This also, the Abbott Block seems like it would be a more marketable first floor residential unit. Flat Street on the first floor might be a little too active, and probably would have the same problems that commercial space would. So.
Okay. Well, let's hear from John because we haven't yet. Go to Gemma, and I hope to wrap this up after that.
You're muted.
You're muted, John.
There we go. The units that are currently in there, are they income restricted or market rate?
They are income restricted. I don't know the breakdown, but they are income restricted.
Okay, thank you.
Short and sweet. Gemma?
I just wanted to comment that as somebody who's originally from New York City and has lived in Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Seattle, in cities like that, first floor commercial uses attached to residential are just the most natural thing in the world to me. I mean, that's what cities are made up of. So I'm totally fine with that.
should we vote to see if we want to bring this back with and this isn't necessarily anyone's opinion on the matter. It could be that someone wants the provisions that staff brought out in the memo to be changed in some way. How about we just keep it general like that? That we look at those, 221B, the use standards about commercial versus residential on the first floor in the urban center. That we take a dive into that, a little study, and but is this something we have time for during the town plan work?
It's not.
It's not
I don't
huge.
see this as a heavy lift to kind of look at that language. I mean, with the town plan work, we can also be looking at the boundaries of
Right.
the urban center.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, I'll make the motion that to direct staff to delve into this topic that I already said, and that we'll bring it back at a future meeting for discussion and decision making.
If I could just jump in there so that I'm clear as to what we're talking about.
Sure.
Staff is going to look at, I assume, what properties in the downtown area would be affected by a zoning change like this, and make us aware of those.
Oh well, I thought it'd be even more general, just to look at 221B, which has those carve outs or restrictions or exemptions, whatever they are, about first floor residential versus commercial. To look at that with fresh eyes now, with
Right.
2025 eyes and new input and new perspective, and the couple anecdotes that Sue has shared.
Right, but if our only option is a zone-wide rule, then I think we need to know how many properties this would actually affect by changing this rule, and to assess based on that, on balance, what would be the effects to the town.
Well,
What do you think, Sue?
so, I mean, I think the best use of our time would be to look at a proposal that we think makes sense, and then evaluate it based on what parcels it would affect. But if you want it done, we can look at the way it's written and show you which parcels it affects. There you go. I mean, the request that's coming from Peter is to, take a look at that section and find a way to allow some housing on the first floor in Abbott Block. I mean, we want to look at that section and see how it makes sense for the downtown. We think that there is room for both tightening up in areas where there should not be any first floor, and then, we're open to allowing some of the periphery, ones on the edge to have first floor housing. So I would come back with a proposal that tightens up the really, critical areas, but then maybe also allows a lot of periphery.
I think I understand better then. In 2023, we didn't have any visuals or like highlighted parcels on a map or anything, and it's just, I think it would be good to have visuals of your recommendation or several options, a few options that you may have. Hopefully that motion can be shortened and made clear in the minutes. But if everyone, it's pretty general charge anyway. I don't feel like it needs to be too specific beyond what we've talked about.
I'll second it. That's Lindsay.
Thank you, Lindsay. Okay. Any discussion on the motion before voting? Nope. Okay. All in favor? Please raise your hand. That's everyone. All 7 commissioners. Okay.
No,
Oh, sorry. I thought I saw your hand up, John. My mistake.
no.
Okay.
Can we just do a roll call vote? If it's
Yeah,
not
yeah,
unanimous,
okay.
It's supposed to be roll call.
Okay. All those. So I'll go first. I'm in favor. Gemma. She's in favor. Dan. Yes. Hand up. John.
Yeah, I just want to ask Sue before I vote. Sue, you appeared to give a different recommendation for the motion than the motion actually presented.
Oh.
Am I incorrect about that? I thought the motion presented was a bit ambiguous, and that's why I didn't vote for it. So I was kind of hoping that we could rephrase it to make it more specific.
I don't know what the question is anymore.
Yeah. Well,
I thought that your motion was for the staff to look at section 221B.
That's not what I
Fresh
heard.
eyes and come back to us with their thoughts on that.
I
And that to
agree with
me
that.
is
I agree
okay.
with that motion, but that's not what I heard, and that's why I was
Yeah.
clarifying.
well,
That's my understanding.
That was my understanding.
that's what I intended.
Okay, then I'll vote for it.
Okay. And Lindsay,
Yes.
Bonnie, hands up.
Okay.
Yep. Gary.
Aye.
Okay. I think that's all 7 of us. If I missed anyone. Okay. Thank you, Peter, for the proposal and attending, and stay in the loop.
Thank you very much, everyone. We'll keep up to speed with Sue and her team.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to 2026 town plan. Continuing to work on this monthly, draft chapters, and a bit more on the public outreach work that we've done in previous months. Here's a summary of the visions, the vision components of the surveys and the community outreach, community conversations. Sorry. Sue, do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I think that there was some concern over the AI summary for the vision statements, and so I kind of ran it or from the vision questions in both the survey and then in the community conversations. So I ran it a different way to try to draw out a little bit more what people's vision for Brattleboro was, and the vision would be cultural and becoming a cultural arts and culture hub, downtown revitalization and having a diverse business mix, housing population growth, housing and population growth, sustainability and environmental leadership, and then improving the physical infrastructure for mobility and recreation, and then the 6th one is social and safety transformation. And then some of the challenges that came out of those questions, which I think we've seen elsewhere in the survey, were public safety, substance abuse and homelessness, housing and affordability crisis, economic stability. It's kind of like the reverse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Economic and stability and downtown viability, climate change, our demographics. So I just ran them a different way, but I think the themes kind of across the board are the same. So
Yeah, I think maybe what happened, I don't know, is that the 150 people who did the survey, and I'm just guessing here because I didn't read all of those comments, but I'm assuming that a lot of them viewed that question 3 about your vision of Brattleboro in 20 years, thought that it was like a wish list sort of vision, like what they want. But I felt like it, and certainly the kind of analogous question in the community conversations was trying to be predictive, like not what do you want and what do you think needs changing, but just what do you actually predict Brattleboro will be like in 20 years. And from the community conversations that I got a lot of comments that were predictive, and I do see some of them evidenced in there, but I think maybe people didn't really understand that in the survey, and since there were 150 results, that kind of really dominated. So a little unfortunate, but that's the results we got, or maybe I misunderstood the question.
I think vision statements are often.
Yeah, but then it wasn't different than question 2 if it was just what people want. So I would assume people would think that it's a different question, but so it is, and we've done it. John.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot and done a lot of a clarification on it. Is some portion of this going to go into the town plan, I hope?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it'll maybe up front tend to draw on it in the chapters as I'm going through a second time.
I think up front and sort of this is what we believe in. Summary area would be fabulous. Yeah, I just wanted to see it go to use, if you will.
Yep.
All right, commissioners, anything else to add? No. Okay. Go to the next 2026 town plan sub item. Which would you like that to be, Sue? The map or one of the chapters?
We're gonna demo an activity
right.
for the public meeting. This
Great.
is a new tool to us. Some of you maybe have been in meetings with it before. So has anybody used Mentimeter, or it's like kind of live action polling before? For those of you that are at home on a computer, I'm going to ask you at some point to open up another browser, but in the meantime I'm going to share. This might look a little funny because I'm sharing a screen and maybe it works. Hold on a second. You all seeing my inbox?
Yes.
An accident. I don't know if you are. I don't.
Yes.
That is not the screen I want you to see.
It's not my name in
That's why I was turning my head away.
there. How polite.
Okay.
Well, I've spent my career as an IT consultant. The client's privacy is very, very important.
Sorry about that.
I don't want to know anything I don't need to know.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. As Steve mentions, it's all a matter of public record for us. Okay. So, two things. I don't know if you can see it, but
Is everyone clear on what this demo activity is for?
Oh,
okay. So a couple of meetings ago, we talked about doing a visual preference survey for a land use public meeting to kind of get ideas of the kind of development that, and certain aspects of development that the public might be open to or wanting. So put together just kind of like a little preview of some of the things that Steve and I have been looking at, some of the images that we've been collecting. Some of you are in the poll already. So the idea is that this would be an interactive meeting, and we could also even have like a static poll online, so if people can't make the meeting, they can do this. So if you haven't used one of these live polling before, so you can either aim your mobile phone at this QR code in the bottom, or you can go open up a new tab to menti.com and put this code in, and it's going to take you straight to what we're going to be looking at. And as an icebreaker, just asking you, what's your favorite thing to eat at Thanksgiving? If you want to add that. You can put two things in, because I know it can be hard. So this is just kind of a word cloud is one of the tools that you can use in this. We're going to go to a ranking exercise next.
How much time do we have?
I'll give you. Is everybody in? I guess let's put it that way. Everybody's gotten in.
I am in and I clicked submit, but it's not going through.
It's not taking it?
Oh, maybe now it'll go through. I think it maybe went through. I'm not sure. Oh, there it is. Okay.
All right. Ooh. All right. Excellent. Okay, I'm gonna move it along then to some of the images that we've prepared. Okay, so this I've only have like one set of questions for you, and it's a couple of images that you're gonna rank different aspects of the images. For the purpose of this, we're gonna look at the study area that's in the orange and the kind of pinkish orange. So if you can read this map, there's the neighborhood center that's orange, and then the salmon color is kind of the service center. So these are just our existing zoning districts, but I felt I should give you our study area.
Steve or Sue, could you put the link to it in the chat, because because it looks like Gary and Bonnie are having trouble accessing it.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you,
Time to
Lindsay.
do-
I got an old Verizon phone from 2015, sorry.
You could do it. Are you on, Gary, are you on a computer right now or are you on the phone?
I am at my laptop.
You can open up another tab and put it in if you want.
Oh, see, I'll click this
That's
link
easy.
here.
Whichever you would prefer. So that link is, if you put that in a web tab and or web browser, and then this is the code, the use code if you bring that up.
Okay. All right, we click that. Here we go. See here. I clicked the demo.
Ooh, maybe just menti.com actually, not, just use this website. I don't know why it's coming up like that. Use menti.com and then,
Uh-oh. Think I lost you, right? Coming out of there, hang on. Okay.
and Bonnie, thank you for your comment. You said your computer's too old. I mean, this is one of the things that we need to be aware of in a meeting, and have some paper copies. Steve and I had talked about that before.
Menti.com.
I'm working on a new computer right now. It's in my kitchen. I just haven't figured it out yet.
Got it. Getting them set up is always difficult. Okay. All right. Gary, are you in?
I'm trying to see, I'm almost in the matrix there. Has his map, study map, and has a thumb up.
You're good. We've already gone past the first slide, so you can tell us what you like to eat for Thanksgiving if you want, or we can just move on.
Oh, was this showing me a map and clicking a thumb up? It's not telling me about Thanksgiving.
No, we've already passed that slide, so we're gonna move on. So this is the area that we're talking about for the next couple of questions.
Okay.
So, so they're showing you these next set of images are all residential, and I'm asking you to rank it on a scale of -3 as to you really hate these aspects of this photo to 3, +3, as you're really strongly in favor of the certain aspect, and you are ranking it based on landscaping, the height of the building, and the building length. And thinking about its appropriateness in that study area that I talked to you. So are these kind of things that you would want to see in a development that could happen in that Putney Road area?
Anywhere within that
Within
salmon
that
color
study
or
area.
that orange area.
Yeah, wait a minute. It seems like I'm in the matrix here. It says, please wait for presenter to change slide.
Are you seeing the numbers, Gary? Because it's kind of live totaling it. So,
Oh, okay. No, I already clicked it when they submitted it. So this says, please wait for the presenter to change slide.
oh, Gary, that means your vote went through. So you.
Yeah, you're supposed to submit your vote, Gary, and then look at the Zoom screen where you can see the results of the vote.
Thank you.
And then when Sue changes the slide, then you can go back and look at the survey and you can enter new responses when a new question comes up.
Gotcha. Following directions.
So we had
Okay.
6 of 9. I'm going to move on from this. Okay, so this is a different residential development. And again, you're ranking the same. In all of these, we're looking at different residential developments and you have an issue?
Hey, Sue,
Yeah, the scales.
Yes.
the scale goes from 2 to 3, it appears, for landscaping.
That's what Steve was just telling me. I think I must have set this one up wrong, but that's good. Good to know.
Yeah. I can live too. They all go 2 to 3.
2 to 3. 2, you hate it. 3, you love it.
Just gonna put a like button on it, you know. I love it.
Would potentially using this exercise and this tool be in a live in-person meeting?
Yeah, I've always seen it
Okay.
used live in person.
Okay, so my one suggestion so far would be that I would have you keep up a poster of that original area you were talking about,
Okay.
so that people can continue doing the questions while still looking at that.
Thank you.
But I've already forgotten.
How do you envision that you'll combine paper submissions with these? They'll just be compiled after the fact
Compiled
for your
after.
use?
Yeah, we'll have a paper where they can rank it, just in case.
Actually, that's a good question. The thing that we're being asked to vote on in regards to the images, how does that connect to the area that you originally displayed? Is this for that area or is it in general?
It's for that area. Would you want to see development, of this height, type of landscaping, building length?
In that area specifically?
In that area.
Not whether you like it or not. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. Okay, so we had 7 of 9 vote on that. So actually, I think maybe we should stop and discuss. Would anybody like to talk about, how you felt or how you ranked? Like, what do you like about this?
I think you would need to have volunteers available to help people with issues. Especially considering that oftentimes the folks who come out to those types of meetings may not be as familiar with these types of tools. So you'd need like proctors to be like walking around and helping people maybe.
Yeah.
And I mean, that could be us, maybe.
Comment I have.
That's true. 2 people can help out. That'd be great.
Yeah, I think that would actually be fun to walk through the group and answer questions and do things like that.
Thought that I have is sometimes it takes people seeing like what's being asked and what sort of images are coming before them to get like, after they go do a few submissions, they may think, oh, I'd actually like to go back and change some of the first ones because I didn't like realize what was being compared, or if there's some sort of little demonstration or like a quick scan through of like various of the pages of the images and things that will be asked, then I think that'll get them closer to having like an overall view of what they're about to do. So that way the first few results aren't like all over the place and not accurate to what they actually think based off when they see more context. Does that make sense?
It does. Although I think the one concern is we're not asking you to necessarily compare against each other. It's more of like, when you look at this, is this, do you think the landscaping would be appropriate for new development on Putney Road? Or it's not asking you to like choose the best landscaping out of a series of pictures.
Right.
It could potentially.
Is there a box, Sue?
Hold on a second, Gary. Hold on a second.
I think we're still early enough in this where it's possible that if that's a more preferable way of doing it, that we could change the way that we present this so that is how we ask people to do it. I've definitely seen it done that way before. I don't know if one is better or worse.
Well, yeah, no, I like this way of doing it, but I also think like people, at least in the beginning, people might think, oh yeah, that looks all right, and then they see subsequent slides and be like, oh no, I actually like this more. I wish I could have changed my +2 to actually -1 on a previous slide. But maybe not. Maybe, like you're saying, if people just approach each slide with kind of just I don't know, kind of blank mind or something, then they can just.
Related to that concern, I just wondering, do we know if we can keep the results from showing until we know everybody's had a chance to finish?
Yeah, I
Is it-
can hide results
So
until
that
after
seems
everybody
important
votes.
to prevent influence.
I think John
Oh,
and
John?
Gemma have hands raised.
Okay, John and Gemma.
Yeah, so my feedback on the two pictures was that they both look like big urban housing blocks. Section 8 would be the sort of crude way of saying it. And so that leads to my next question, which is, were there boundaries around, the options that you were going to present to the group? And if so, if there are boundaries, I think it would probably be helpful to make those boundaries clear up front. Like, in other words, you're not going to see, little cottages grouped together in a communal sort of environment. You're going to see big housing blocks because that's what that area can afford or is appropriate or something. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I have more slides with different types of housing forms.
Okay.
I think
But
our
it-
intent too is to have some that aren't housing at all.
Yeah.
We don't have any of that yet.
Right.
So-
So like this first set, we're all housing, and I admittedly I don't personally don't find the landscaping on any of these necessarily I don't think any of them are necessarily overkill. I think some might, so we didn't pay as much attention. I mean, I would say these images are really probably best to look at building height, 2, 3 plus buildings, and then the length of the building. So when I look at this image and then I look at this image, this is one really big long block. This is 4 stories, which as opposed to this one is blocky, but it's not as long as the other one. So, maybe asking the landscaping question. I mean, we have to nail this down for sure.
I guess what I wanted to close with, and then I'll turn over the floor, was my real point was not that I liked or disliked the two pictures, but if you have boundaries surrounding what you can do in that area, I think it would make sense to give people that up front so that they know that they can't dislike everything because they're not seeing, a gingerbread house or something ridiculous like that, if that makes sense.
I mean, I think that could tie into the future land use map actually pretty nicely to say, this is what we're envisioning for this area. So I think that came up at one of the other meetings, would we be testing out the future land use map? So you do that, say, here's what we're thinking, and here's a bunch of images, which ones,
Yes, exactly. Within that realm of what we're thinking.
And that does kind of pair with what I was trying to say as well, which is just give people starting out some range of what they're about to see.
I can tell you all, this would be helpful context, that the example images that we have, I think right now it's exactly 40. You're not going to be asked to look at all of them today.
Mm-hmm.
But the universe that we considered, so to speak, was just we took a look at census tracts where there was a significant amount of new addresses added between 2020 and 2025 because we found a nice comparison map for that, and then took a look to try to find, okay, where is this place? Does it look like? It's primarily multifamily. Some of them have a mix that includes some single family, but it's things that were made really within the last 10 years that are within New England. None of the examples were in Vermont to avoid overly familiar examples, but we tried to keep it things that could theoretically be built in Brattleboro. Some of them might require a little bit more suspension of disbelief than others as far as the economics, but none of them are going to be 30-floor skyscraper, something that was built in 1800.
Mm-hmm. That's a little context that might be good to give at the actual workshop too. And, to start people off. Oh, we have a few hands. I think I said Gemma earlier, after John.
Yeah, I wanted to say that to address what Tom was saying before, that I think it might be a good idea to just simply present all the images at once to begin with and allow people to digest. the range of things that are going to be discussed without rating them, so that they have an idea when we go into the rating of what they might like and what they might not. I don't think that any of these buildings look like Section 8 housing. To me, they look like hotels and nursing homes. They look like commercial buildings, not homes. What else was I going to say about this? Oh, I think it's also probably pretty important to be explicit with people and tell them that these are not actual proposals that have been made for properties in our town. These are simply examples. And I think that the last thing that I had to say was that I'm not sure that numbers are really the best way to do rankings here. I was specifically thinking about this because, we have three options here: landscaping, building height, and building length. And as far as I'm concerned, I rated them the lowest possible for both landscaping and building length. I don't think any of those were appropriate for our town. Building height, the four-story building, I think is appropriate. I could even see 5, 6, 7-story buildings, with some caveats to that I won't go into right now. However, when you just say to somebody like, do you like this landscaping? Well, that doesn't really tell you a whole lot. I think maybe the scale should be, more granular. And you should be asking people like, do you think this is enough trees, or should we have more trees? Do you think this is too much parking? Should we have less parking? These kind of things. Do you think there's enough green space there, or should there be more green space? Because frankly, I think the landscaping there is just absolutely horrifying in both of those pictures. So that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Gemma.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Gemma. Dan, you're up.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. I guess we probably should just agree that this is all about, I think, Sue, you could clarify this, but essentially it's about getting people's perceptions, their initial reaction to these, and it's not esoteric and so forth. But that's not to, so I think if that's the goal, though, I would suggest, as Tom was saying earlier, give some context, as Steve was talking about, just as far as, what's realistic in Brattleboro in this area. I'd also suggest that you show a picture of an actual building in Brattleboro, such as Red Clover Commons, if you're going to compare to these types of buildings. Some people might look at a picture of Red Clover Commons and not know what they're looking at, and some would. You could use other buildings as well, of course, but just as an example to compare with these. I don't know if but I guess that's kind of a question. I don't know if that's what you're going for, is sort of like a comparison of their perceptions of an ideal building in Brattleboro versus an actual building, or, I'm not sure what you're, other than getting their initial reactions and perceptions. Is there kind of a next step to this that we're not thinking about?
It will inform the future land use chapter, so it's trying to, this is residential. For the Putney Road area, I think we're trying to encourage infill housing, probably of a larger scale, and so it's kind of checking to see the public's openness to that, and is it? I'll go through the remainder of the images, but trying to get people to tell us, is this acceptable to them? Is this can they see this fitting on Putney Road? Not is it acceptable to them, but
And I don't know, would it make sense in that sense to show an actual picture of a real building in Brattleboro as well in this activity?
It could. Red Clover Commons is a good one to show.
Yeah.
It's the newest one, I suppose, other than Snowball. Yeah, we can think about that for sure. And I think, particularly when we put some commercial images in, then it's gonna change, and then we can talk about, have them rank some of the pedestrian amenities, the amenities that they see on the site, whether it's outdoor seating, bike racks, you name it, and just so that when we write kind of the chapter and the kind of development that we want to see, we've got a sense of what the community wants to see.
If I may, one more thing, in terms of the context, one thing Tom mentioned, and I think a specific thing that could be mentioned about what the goal of this is maybe just to mention in the descriptions here, and this, again, it's a question of what you're going for, but if you said, this is a 30-unit building, for example, or this is a 40-unit building, or whatever it is, or it's, if you want to get specific, it's a building with 10 3-bedrooms and 10 2-bedrooms, and
we're not going to know that.
Right, I get that, but what you're asking is for your sort of perceptions. It seems you're going for what's wrong with it, and I guess it would be good to have something about what's right with it. Like what's the benefit. That's just one. I don't know what I'm just putting that out there that you might want to have some kind of. You're just looking at the visual perception of it, right?
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah. Okay. So that's fine then. But you get what I mean. Like if people see the benefit of like, oh, it's, that building, wow, that's 40 units. Wow. Okay. I could go for that, that kind of thing.
So one aspect that I'm not sure we explicitly mentioned that it might help to mention is that these 3 particular categories that we're asking about aren't necessarily the ones that we will use or the only ones that we will use when we actually do this.
Yeah.
There will probably 5 to 10 additional ones we batted around that aren't in here yet, but it may also be possible to follow up on some of these higher level categories to ask people for more specifics about why they reacted favorably or unfavorably, to go back to something that Gemma had brought up. So it may well be possible for us to sort of dive into more specific aspects afterwards once we get the general overability.
Okay. Gary, what are your thoughts?
Well, I guess my thought, I'm thinking myself too, because a lot of these buildings that we're showing look more institutional. Being from the city myself, looking at a lot of the projects in New York, they all look the same in the height and the width and the girth. And I was thinking more of a different visual concept that they have out there that's more sustainable, that fits the landscape of Vermont, in an earthy type of way, tone and background. There are other visuals and other people that are creating more or less affordable but more sustainable and lasting buildings. And I think maybe coming across with that might be something that we can also look into. And I don't know if this is the only concept that you came across. It's great. And I'm just thinking maybe, there's so many architects. We have them downtown that create things that, that are housing clicks or all that and putting them together. I sent you in the past that we can look into as well. So that we're not having that same look as other places have that you say, oh, that must be the projects there. Okay. But you want to say, wow, this fits right into the landscape and the scope and the earthy tone of Vermont, but it's still affordable, it's sustainable, and there are a lot of concept visuals out there. So I didn't know if that's something that we can consider. I don't know if you have a deadline on this or an end game on it, but my thought is this: maybe we could throw some things out there, and in the meantime, when they answer that question, find out why did you consider this particular concept or visual. I don't know if that can be added as well also, Sue.
So I'll just jump in real quick. I picked both these images. There is currently a spreadsheet with 40 of them. We'd be happy to take more. Both of the images that you've seen so far have been extremely high rent, market rate buildings in suburban Boston, I believe. The first one, definitely. The second one, I think so. So neither one of them was affordable housing in any sense of the word, and that wasn't a consideration we made when exactly means, just because it's come up a couple times. I just want to clarify on that.
But I also wanted to mention too, Steve, too, with the cost of materials and things going up, as we know, too, trying to find something that's more feasible, as we know, with the current budget. So that's why I'm just throwing that. There are other concepts that are more within the means of not trying to go over certain budgetary constraints, as we know today.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, one thing we've had in some of our districts is like, well, maybe all of them to some extent, but like some actual architectural like features, or like a cupola on the top, or like didn't like the rural business district have things like a few things like that. So those, but
Yes.
hearing what Gary's saying, some of what he's saying makes me think of those, and you could ask people like, do you want buildings that have these extra added design features, or are you fine with just kind of utilitarian or no extra architectural amenities added? It's like we have the bays, the lengths of bays for buildings.
Yeah, I mean, again, we're not doing zoning though, so
No.
I don't want it to be so specific. And then the other thing is just, I mean, this is the kind of development that's happening in the Keene area. It's happening in the Burlington area. So, Gary, when you get highly specialized or, some of those things, it drives the cost up. So we're also trying to be realistic. But we can look around. We're not done looking for images. So.
Great.
Well, yeah, because I was looking to a lot of researchers into a lot of buildings that are going up in a lot of different states and how they're subsidizing and how they're cutting costs and finding ways of buildings and things. I've sent you in the past. I don't know if you've seen them before. The ones that I've sent you, different concepts in that
Yep.
they last. I'm just throwing it out there. If that's something that if I sent it to you, maybe you could look into. And you could look at it, and it's just a thought, maybe, and the different concepts, different ways instead of looking at the same modular buildings that we already currently have, maybe something different that fits into the scope of the state, because a lot of people still love to see their trees and their mountains, and just fit right in there. So I was just thinking for that type of mindset, as people are settling up here now, buying little cottages or tiny houses, something like in that section or in that area that, in the housing market, I've seen them put up, and it's like, wow, this is different than anywhere else, and they are self-sustainable, and they are places that can be reused again. So if I do find anything, would you look in or consider?
Yeah, if you find anything, feel free to share the images. I mean, again, I think it's going to go in line with the district or the area that we're talking about. So, I would not want, if we're talking Putney Road area, I'm not sure that tiny homes would be an image that I'd show. But
Well, no, not tiny homes, but there are modulars that I've come up across different architects' designs.
Gary,
that happen.
Gary, can you send those ideas as you come across them to staff?
Absolutely.
And to me too?
Yeah.
By email? Okay.
No, I know. But given that Putney Road has a 2-floor height minimum, we didn't consider anything that was below that for these images that you're looking at.
Yeah. Well, maybe Gary will find stuff that meets that.
If we were doing this for a different area, then you would see images that fit what is possible at
There, before I go to Gemma and Lindsay, I just want to ask, do you feel like you're getting all that you need from us for this, or that we're gonna do some more slides?
No, I don't think, I think given the time, we don't need to do any more slides. I think we're getting a lot of good information. I can flip through them so you can see them after.
Okay. Gemma, then Lindsay.
I just want to say that I think the danger of an exercise like this, when you're working with criteria like, well, this is what's being built now or in the past 10 years in New England, part of what's difficult for people to wrap their brains around is when you have an area like North Putney Road, what people are going to think is appropriate for that place is going to largely depend on what's already there or not there. And one of the things that is really not there is streets. We should be thinking about building a town, not more suburbia, which is what I see when I look at these pictures. I see parking moats, I see isolated buildings that are very far set back from community, and that's not what I want to see happen in Brattleboro. So,
Is that more like it, Gemma?
I would say that that looks more like Philadelphia, certain parts. That there are aspects of that that I think are appropriate.
It's
I
actually
would say.
Manchester, New Hampshire.
And I believe
Yeah.
this
It-
is affordable housing. It
Yeah.
might not be.
The thing that really touched me off there was my realization of the question of how do streets get built? You know, how did downtown Brattleboro end up with the pattern of streets that it has, and why does North Putney area have no streets like that? And if we want to build more of what downtown Brattleboro is in North Putney, how do we make that happen? And that's not by putting up these monolithic buildings.
Yeah, maybe some slides could have the actual. Is that within the purview of what you imagine? The actual like density
Well,
of
I mean, I
roads
would say
and
that-
network? No.
You know, one of the types of neighborhoods that I think are extremely attractive are things like Park Slope, Brooklyn. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily appropriate for Brattleboro, but I don't even see that kind of housing in this discussion at all. And I think that the reason for that is because there's nothing even remotely like that in this town to begin with. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't have something like that just because it's not here. People get so caught up in this idea of changing the character of the neighborhood. Well, the character of the neighborhood needs to change. So I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you, Gemma. Lindsay?
Sue, a few minutes ago you mentioned, I think that the photos you were showing were more or less what you thought would be built, if we moved forward and encouraged that sort of development. Is that what you were saying?
No, I don't think I was saying that.
So what are the pictures then, I guess? Because I don't think that. Go ahead, sorry.
There are examples of recent development in New England.
But do you think that they would occur here?
I think they could occur here. I think not necessarily in this market.
Is that what would occur here given our current zoning regulations and form standards if Putney Road went in a certain direction?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, so then I guess I don't really understand the point of the pictures then, because I don't think that people will be able to extrapolate from the pictures about height and length and things like that. Like, I think people will look at a building and decide whether it's ugly or attractive. I mean, given my background, I recognize all of these buildings more or less as being the standard for what's been built over the last, at least 10 years in here and in Atlantic Canada. I don't particularly care for it anymore, but I recognize it and I know why it's being built. I think you either have to tell people that this is what would likely be built given our zoning regulations, or I'm not really sure that the pictures would be all that useful, because I don't think that people can extrapolate out I don't think they'll be able to get beyond the image.
Closing thoughts? Closing asks by staff?
Just one little comment, and that was that the first picture that was shown, the first thing that came to my mind was Long Trail House at Stratton. You know, it looks like a commercial hotel building, basically. That one.
Yeah.
It's technically transit-oriented development. Just a fun fact. I wouldn't really consider it. Oh, it's technically transit-oriented development. This is near the end of the line commuter rail stop in, depending on where on the property, Franklin or Bellingham, Mass. That was a homer pick on my part, but I wouldn't consider the walk to the train stop to be great, but it is transit-oriented development. I'm flat.
John, go ahead.
I think anytime you try something new, particularly in Vermont, you're going to get a lot of feedback. I just wanted to compliment the two of you for experimenting with this idea. Personally, I think the concept of giving people pictures and then letting them rate various qualities is a very good one with some of the input that the team has given. So I applaud your creativity to dealing with the problem in a different way.
Thanks for that.
It definitely needs some work, but thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in general, I'm in support of it, and I like a lot of what I heard, and I think it can be refined, and I think it can be a worthwhile exercise. And one more quick thing is, as long as the press release or whatever for the event says, please bring your mobile phone, battery charged, etc.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna shut this down.
Anyone else closing thoughts before we move on?
I guess my question is, if anybody else comes into the event with different concepts, are you open to that, Sue, or no?
No.
Okay.
If you send them to me before the event, yes.
Oh, no, not me. I'm talking about the people if they come in person.
Well, I think we would definitely have a conversation to hear what people have to say. But no, I can't throw an image into it last minute.
Okay.
That wouldn't work for me.
I should ask if any commissioners don't like this exercise and have something else in mind.
Is there a deadline to this, Tom or Sue? Do you have a
we're going to keep working on it because we're going to have to do a public meeting probably in January, so we can't really go past that. So.
Oh, okay. I thought you had mentioned like the summer or something. Okay.
No.
All right. Well, I'll get whatever concepts I can bring to your attention.
All right. Thanks, Gary.
I think it's really interesting and useful, and I'm glad that you all put it together. I think the simpler that you can make it, the more likely you will be to get the answers that are going to be helpful and have made your time worthwhile.
If anyone does want to submit additional spots, the format that would be helpful to us is if you go on Google Street View, that's how we did these. If there's a spot that you like and you want us to think about putting in there, there should be a share button. I believe it's on the top right-hand corner of your screen when you're on Google Street View. And that will give a link that just drops straight into what you're looking at. So then if you send that to us, we'll see what you're looking at. If we can put that right in, if it fits the question that's being asked when we bring this to the number.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Sue. It is a good, quick synopsis of what you're looking at in that scale. I just thought it was going to be a little longer. January seems to be your deadline, so we have to get moving on this ASAP.
Okay, great. Which should we move on to, Sue and Steve? The future land use drawing map there, or chapters? I see Stephen thoughts.
Yeah, Stephen's on. Do you mind jumping to energy?
I think that's fine.
Chapter. That way Stephen came in case there's any questions. And then everybody needs to be here. Hi, Stephen.
Hey, everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, Stephen, I think you drafted the previous version of the energy chapter we saw, and this one looks like the second version looks like it has the goals, policies, actions, and maybe a decent amount more to the narrative. Do you want to run through that briefly or highlight the important parts?
I will talk in very broad strokes, and honestly, this is Sue and Stephen co-creation. We've been back and forth because I dream too big, and she pulls me back into the structure that you guys are working in, which I know we want to stay true to, so it all makes sense throughout the whole document. But I will say right now, I am not looking at it. I can pull it up, but in broad strokes, the goals really are what you would expect of an energy plan at this point in time. We need to reduce our use. We need to figure out how to become more resilient. We need to generate more renewables. We need to monitor our emissions. And there's a number of steps that we need to do for both the town and the community related to those things. So I don't want to read to you from the plan at all. I want to kind of try and convey that we're trying to fit a lot into a small amount here. It does fall across a number of other chapters of the town plan, and so there's ways in which we can incorporate some detail around how energy translates into transportation and housing and land use in chapters dedicated to that. But this, I think, covers all the bases and tries to demonstrate how the community is performing, how the town is performing, and where we have the best opportunity to improve that. There's a lot more I could say, but I'm going to just open it up because this is a draft and we need to keep working on it.
Mm-hmm. Commissioners, any comments beyond from 2 months ago when we saw the smaller draft, the first draft? Dan?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Stephen, I don't think we need to go through all the details of the plan, but the energy chapter. But could you just sort of give us a thumbnail of the percentages that are mentioned in the goals section? Are those drawn from? Are those typical goals for towns? I'm just curious what your thoughts are on, 10% by 2030 and all the percentages especially.
Yes, sure. And good question. Yeah. That was set by the Energy Committee about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. And they're meant to match the state's goals. So assuming we're going to do what the state of Vermont wants to do, we're trying to align so we can measure and pursue at the same rate.
Okay, so they're all actually exactly the same as the state's goals?
Yes, that was the intention and what the select board passed. And the intention in the plan states that we'll try and continue to match the state's goals.
Right, great, thanks.
Gemma, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the goals that are stated there in number 4, and I know those come from the state law, whose name I cannot recall at the present time. But I was pretty well involved in public outreach for Act 18 last year, and so I saw a lot of and heard a lot of comments from the public about the challenges that are facing Vermont in implementing that. The question that I have is exactly how are those goals being measured? And I don't need an answer to this right now, both at the state level and at the municipal level, because if we start implementing things, like how does that even get counted? There's 2 things that I am continually hammering on when it comes to energy consumption, especially in Vermont, and that is the 2 largest sectors for consumption of energy resources are transportation and HVAC. And the answers to those are you have to get people out of cars and you have to get people out of single residence homes and places of business. People need to move downtown into multi-unit buildings where they're closer together and the buildings themselves are more efficient. Suppose we go through and we do a whole bunch of work around getting people out of cars, and we do get them out of cars. How do we even count what those savings were? I'm not sure that that I understand how do we go about putting these goals into some sort of concrete form that isn't just, well, we want more people to ride bicycles, which of course I do, but. That's the biggest question that I have about all of this. We know what it takes to decrease our emissions and increase our efficiency. This is not rocket science. The question is, how do we go about doing that?
Thank you, Gemma. I really agree with you. And in fact, part of what I've had an issue with for the last 5 years, ever since taking this job, is that the state of Vermont has set goals that the towns cannot measure according to data they have. And there's been no effort, though called upon from towns and the regions, to kind of standardize a methodology and protocol to say what kinds of how do we measure against these goals? How do we find this data? How do we all make sure it's apples to apples? There are a variety of depths to which you can go for, emissions, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. And part of what you'll find in the plan is actually advocating for exactly that, standardization of methodology and trying to achieve that level measuring field.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other commissioners? Anything to add? The input to
I
give?
think I wanted to ask Stephen, real quick. Now that the cost went up on energy, well, rather than on electric bills, I don't know if you noticed, but how is that going to fall into that purview now and all these other new regulations that are coming from Washington, cuts and all that? So I'm just trying to get a feeling how to navigate these uncharted waters that are coming next year and currently now with the new administration down there, just dicing and slicing everything. Where do you see this scope?
Sure, yeah. Well, we shouldn't expect any grants for anything related to renewable energy or climate for the foreseeable future. One of the only opportunities that persists, and this is shown in the draft of the town plan too, because this will continue for a number of years after this, is the battery tax incentive, right? So resilience is still an area that we can really focus on, and any place that we build solar, putting batteries in just adds to that value and creates a lot more resilience. We're basically off the grid. So if we can take parts of critical infrastructure into a state where we control them and we don't have to worry about outages, that makes all of Brattleboro more secure. So that, to me, is the place to focus on moving forward. But there is no one that knows what will happen in the near future. The kind of tone of our time is chaos, right? So
Right.
there's no one with a crystal ball. But yeah.
Right. There's no sureties or guarantees, just positive thoughts and trying to figure out, to maneuver and hopping around every time something's being cut or slashed, just not going to be funded. So that's my own concern with current housing and with new housing for people, and also people that are living in that state of day-to-day, fiscal crisis. So that's the reason why I asked that, how that's going to work with people coming into the town versus people currently living here, people low income. So I'm just trying to get an idea of what direction that's going to go.
Okay. I have nothing to add. I mean, I recognize it's a draft and there's a couple things I want to bring up, but I see like the tables aren't finished, so I won't even bring that up. Beyond the comments I had from 2 meetings ago, and like the sidebar actions accomplished, that's recognized in there, and so it looks like it's on a good track to me. If there's nothing else from commissioners and Stephen Dotson, in case you all don't know, he's our sustainability coordinator of the town. I forget if we introduced him that way or not.
We did not.
Okay.
We're doing that.
Yep, he's in the planning department with our 2 staff here, as well as Brian Bannon, zoning administrator. Okay, thanks, Stephen. You can stay or leave if you'd like.
Hey, thank you all.
Thanks.
Have a good night. Thank you, Stephen.
Can we make the housing chapter last, if we can get to it, since it was shared at 3 p.m.?
Yes.
right? So we have the future land use map visual there, as well as the separate agenda item, the work plan, 2 items.
I've got a pull up the future land use map. I realized I didn't send that to you, or I didn't. Let's talk a little bit of future land use. I sent you a colored map because I wasn't, we've been working with the Wyndham Regional Commission at looking, they need to do a new regional plan map, and this is kind of based off the mapping that they've done for the purposes of new state requirements, and yeah, we were wanted to go off of that to kind of, as a first place to try to, sorry, just trying, I can't talk and share screens at the same time. That's what's going on. So they're making some changes to the map, based on feedback that they got from staff, but we kind of wanted to bring you this draft as to what we're thinking about for the future land use map, and let me walk through it because I know you're probably like, what the heck is this? So if any of you know our future land use map, which you probably don't, I should probably flash it up, but basically, the town's kind of divided in almost thirds. Like the far western part is what we call the rural land use district. It's our least dense district. And then there's kind of the next third is what we call the rural residential. And then we have kind of our developed zoning districts that are kind of bounded to the east of 91, and then along the Route 9 corridor where you've got the village. And our zoning is based on that idea of, the far western is the least developed, kind of this middle portion is kind of rural development, kind of along the roads. You can see the parcel maps here underneath in some areas where you can see some small lots surrounded by larger lots along the road. And we had conversations probably starting last summer about some parts of town, particularly like along Route 9. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but in this area where there's kind of some small roadside uses, along Route 30. These are areas that we classified as rural residential, but under a new land use scheme that's coming down from the state, which I have over here in kind of this legend. There's kind of some new rural land use categories. So there's rural agricultural and forestry. So these are kind of this lighter shaded green. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. It's the lighter shaded green where there might be forestry and agricultural uses going on. And then there's conservation lands, which are this darker green. So where my cursor is right here, this is Sunset Lake Reservoir. This is some conservation land associated with developments. So we've got some areas that are, actually in active conservation. And then there's this general land use, rural land use, which is a lot of what we have in our rural residential. So it's the smaller lot sizes that have been developed along roadways. And we kind of liked that categorization of different rural land uses so that you could go from like conservation to those that are kind of the working landscape with agricultural and forestry, and then there's just kind of this general rural housing development. So then you have the developed areas. Over here you have West Brattleboro Village, which we're proposing to expand a little bit. I think we've talked about this in other meetings, to take into account the former Melrose Terrace property, the current Melrose Terrace property. Then you've got the downtown, our downtown center, which remains. And then kind of all the neighborhoods surrounding it are kind of in what's called the planned growth area. And these are areas that we hope to get Act 250 jurisdiction over with the state. So we made sure that these areas include the areas with water and sewer that we did the interim zoning on, as well as we talked about kind of this industrial area up here north of the roundabout. And then the final area is kind of this lighter shade of purple, which is an enterprise area. That's kind of our industrial zoning district. So we've got one up there. We've got one along Route 142. We did put Cotton Mill Hill into the planned growth area. So that's a lot. And I know this is a difficult map to look at without kind of more context as to what do these areas mean. But I guess I'm kind of looking for feedback on particularly the rural areas, I think, tonight. And if you want to give me a minute, I can pop up our existing land use, or you can, what our map is now, so you can see what that looks like and how it compares.
We specify that this is not looking at redoing our zoning districts, that we're mostly looking to be more or less descriptive of
No.
what we're anticipating and what we're wanting to push a little bit in terms of future land use, but it's definitely more like describing what we see as opposed to making value judgments on where the boundaries of the districts ought to be. I could see that potentially coming up as a question when I wanted to hit that off.
Yep.
Well, I can't see people's hands. Dan's hands up? Go ahead, Dan.
Yes, did you want to talk about the rural, general or rural conservation areas specifically, Sue?
I would love to talk about any of it because I just
Okay.
threw a whole lot at you.
Yeah, sure. I just had one thing that I noticed looking at this, and one thing to consider is that some of the rural lots adjacent to each other are owned by the same owner. And I would just look at the ownership patterns, because you have a couple of them there that you've changed to rural, or that are rural general in your map, and then the adjacent lot is not, right? So I would just say maybe look at the ownership of the lots when you're looking at this.
Okay.
My comment is that when I was looking through this, in preparation for this meeting and now, but I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to really delve into this and compare the, areas or parcels based off how we presently have them zoned and what Sue just had up there, the existing town plans feature land use map. But then as I was looking, I was like, whoa, none of these, as Sue said, I think none of these, almost none of these categories on the right in the key match up with the ones of our current future land use map, which match up with our current zoning. And I think that just, unless that's something that is required by the state now or something, I think that is not going to help me as a planning commissioner. And I think that's confusing.
Okay, so
totally.
It is not required that we match up with what the state has. Yeah. So, if there is a preference, can everybody at home see the map, the future land use map from our existing town plan? I have it up now. It's a digital. Oh, it looks like it's paused, so hold on. Share.
Yeah, I would say it's hard enough, to have the 9 or 10 or 12 zoning districts that we have, memorized and have a good conception of where they are. And then, for the sake of the future land use map, kind of throwing them all out and introducing 7 new categories that somewhat overlap with some of them and don't with others, and fuse some of them but are standalone, match up one-on-one in some other cases. I think that's just an extra layer of confusion that isn't good.
So we're not required to match what the states are. However, we can use our own terms on the future land use map. And we don't have to match the boundaries precisely, but the way it works in order for approval of our town plan, we do need to be in alignment, somewhere along the same, along the same path. Sure.
I was gonna ask more so than state, do we think it's worth considering if using or not using the state's defined terms might impact our candidacy for Act 250 exemption, depending on how far removed from them we decide to be?
I don't think so. I mean, I think we can use, what I would probably recommend is that we can use the terminology that we want as long as the overall description is somewhat in alignment with how the state describes it.
Sounds reasonable to me.
And we can get into this more in January, because I know you're all seeing it for the first time. So what we could give you is an actual digital map with a description of what the different land. We could use these categories from our existing town plan: rural, residential. Potentially, I mean, I like the idea of this.
Some of them are grouped.
Just some of the rural ag forestry or rural conservation, so we might change it up a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just think
so it's not so confusing.
Yeah, it's hard to compare with totally different terms on one map versus another.
I think that would happen if we give you a description of what they would.
Yeah, so I guess high-level comments from any other commissioners on this? Considering what we've just heard. Now we got to move on to the work plan projects. Well, it's not the work plan anymore. So here's a couple that we talked about through the work plan exercises. A couple proposed scopes of work for those top 2 projects that made it through our proposed projects that made it through our decision-making exercises. Who would like to go first? I think it's John and Lindsay each authored one of these documents. Don't all rush to the microphone. John's unmuted first, so how about you, John?
I'm happy to go first. I don't have anything to add to what I wrote. If anyone has questions, I tried to make it as clear and succinct as possible, but if people have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Mm-hmm. I read through it and it seemed reasonable to me. So you're looking for another commissioner or 2 to join you in this project?
If people are interested in joining and like the scope of work, then I would be happy to have people join. And if folks aren't interested or don't have the time, then I'll be a committee of 1, and I've been committees of 1 before, so that's okay too.
Gary?
Lindsay, now, how soon did you want to get started on your project? After the holidays, or what do you? Okay.
Yeah, after the holidays, not until the new year.
Okay. Yeah, just send me that. If I would definitely love to jump in there.
Yeah, I've got so much on my plate, Lindsay, so not that we all have to go around and offer our excuses or anything, but I'm offering mine.
Yep, that's okay.
Gemma and I will be working on those letters. So, okay. Well, I assume we're all on board with Lindsay going off and doing it. So,
I think I'm preparing. was interested.
Oh yeah. Sorry. I heard the question, but then I blanked on the joining forces part. Okay, John.
Absolutely.
Let's move on to your project on behalf of the Planning Commission.
Yeah, hopefully
We can't hear you, John.
Can't hear you, even though you're unmuted. No. Nothing.
Big ears.
There we go. You're back. You have to start again. We just started hearing you.
Anyway, hopefully it's clear. It's primarily a research project, I think, on how to activate buildings and spaces in a small town, primarily on a small town Main Street. I think that's where I'd suggest prioritizing, and that's really it. I don't think it's complicated, but I also think that obviously the scope is available for redefinition or editing as other people, or if other people decide to join. Maybe we would accumulate some other data. Maybe we could make a recommendation. I just think it needs to be clear that primarily we're giving this data to the planning departments to save them some time in doing some background work. Okay. And I would encourage Sue to, clarify if I've missed anything.
Dan, why don't you go ahead then, Gary? If Sue doesn't have anything to clarify. Okay. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, maybe this will help, or ask John about clarifying. So you're talking about gathering data, but also, let's say, strategies and tools to, and is it? I guess I'm curious. You've already talked with Sue about this, I'm guessing.
Yeah, in a very high level, at least to my understanding. Yep. We talked about the fact they don't have the resources, and we as a community want to activate these spaces. And to your initial comment, what I would imagine we would do is probably try and go out and gather case studies, if you will, where Town A has done this and they discovered these consequences, or maybe they're not completely done gathering the data, but they think they're going to have, these consequences and those consequences. And here's some background demographic information on the town and the area that they were looking to activate, so that we can make a sort of apples to apples comparison as much as possible with Brattleboro. I mean, that's kind of what I envision. Right.
And this doesn't, maybe I'm off base here, but this doesn't have anything to do with the vacant building ordinance, Sue? No. Okay. So yeah, we're talking.
I suppose it could, but not really. I mean, that's targeted at something different.
Right. Okay. No, it would just, the terminology is obviously the same. So,
Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, wouldn't the vacant building ordinance be an example of a tool, strategy, tactic?
Yes, it would.
And then if we found data, for example, that showed that it worked or it didn't work, that would be helpful, in my opinion, to Brattleboro as they, move forward with it.
John, quickly, do you? I don't think I see it in your little write-up here, but do you envision bringing an outline or a draft to us for our input and review before final?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the reason I mentioned that it has to be sanctioned, in my opinion, by the Planning Commission is because I would imagine to get this data, for the most part, we would have to go out and say, listen, we're working for the Brattleboro Planning Commission. It's a very important issue for Brattleboro these days, give them the usual, spiel. And as part of that, I think that whatever we bring back, it would have to be reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission as well.
I think that would be good. Gary?
I really love John's concept. I love that idea of stimulating that growth and that potential downtown. I don't know, John, is this concept in line also with the DBA is doing or planning to do? Have you talked with them or with current business owners and, trying to get a strategy or analytical idea of where they're at as far as stimulating business downtown, I guess, or bringing in business in those areas and all the other hurdles that come along with it?
Well, I'm going to give you my personal opinion, and obviously it's open for clarification. I don't intend this, I don't expect, and I don't envision that this will be, the Planning Commission recommending to the town of Brattleboro that they need to do A, B, and C to activate. So I would certainly think it would be important to understand from Kate what's happening today. But I talk to Kate actually quite frequently. We run into quite a bit. I think it's more of collecting the data to accelerate the effort that gets turned over to the planning department so that they can lead the activity of making recommendations. Now, certainly we could make recommendations as well, but I'm not so convinced that the Planning Commission making recommendations is going to be the most effective use of our time. I think it's handing the data to the planning department would be much more valuable.
Oh, okay, that's good. All right, my job in there.
Was that Gary volunteering to be on this project or subcommittee as well?
It's a long winter.
Yeah. Any other commissioners have the time and the will and the space and capacity? Gemma, what are your thoughts?
This was one of the proposals that I was interested in, and I stand by that. The activation of vacant buildings and vacant lots is very important to me, and I think that we definitely do have to consider the current vacant building ordinance and the effects that that's going to have. Brattleboro is certainly not the only town in the country or only city in the country to have implemented such a law. And so there should be data out there that should be relatively easy to find as to, at least some extent what effects they've seen. So, yeah, I definitely volunteer to be part of this.
Okay, excellent. Anyone else for this one, or thinking back to Lindsay's from just a moment ago? Okay, well, you all know how to get in touch with each other in the interim. Dan, yeah.
Well, Tom, I actually had a question about that. Shouldn't we have a limit of how many people should be on any subcommittee? Because otherwise it's de facto a planning commission meeting. I don't know what the...
Three is good to keep
Three?
it,
Okay.
but we're happy to warn stuff, so it would just need to be, it's just an extra layer if for sure there's 4.
So it wouldn't be a quorum or anything.
We can warn.
Okay, I didn't know if it was a
Just
quorum.
wondering, so ideally you want 3 or so.
I want as
2 or
many people that are interested
Right.
in working on it, and I would be happy to warn meetings maybe and provide you a space to meet.
Okay. Yeah, so if John or Lindsay, if after this meeting, the commissioners are rushing to join you and you get 4 or more, definitely tell, total, definitely tell Sue. So we can make it official meetings through mornings. Well, we're just about at time, unless we want to go over to review the draft housing chapter. I'm not going to make that motion, but others could.
Let's do it next time.
But I'll do our public comment period, seeing and hearing no public. That's over. I'll take a motion to adjourn because we didn't finish our
Motion that
business.
we adjourn, Tom, and have a happy holiday.
Thank you, Gary.
I'll see you guys out there.
I'll second that motion.
Second the motion?
Okay, I'll give it to Jim. All those in favor, please raise your hand of adjourning.
Aye. Aye.
Waiting on
Thanks,
Bonnie
everybody.
if she's going to vote aye. Yes. Okay, that's everyone. All right, thanks everyone.
Everybody, happy holidays.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Great
have a
holidays.
good night.
Good night.